Alrighty. YouTube says I am live. Let's see if I really am. We will find out together, my friends. I'm also going to make sure that I'm double make sure that I'm recording this because you live and you learn. And last week I learned that even when you think you're streaming, if you think that you've got it all together, you can just hold on to this digital world and just grab it and get it all right. Inevitably, you won't. And I have learned that lesson many times. I'm starting this exactly 19 minutes later than I had intended. If anyone is live and wants to give me a thumbs up to say so, that's great. If you're listening to the recording of this and you are already frustrated because I've just been talking about being live on YouTube and you're just listening to it later, I'm sorry, friends. You're missing out on a party that's between me, a delicious cup of coffee. Shout out Crema Coffee in Nashville, Tennessee, and eventually probably a little child or two from upstairs who's doing homeschool that might run down here to share something that they're excited about or upset about. So stay tuned because that's what it's like to work from home when you are making up your own business. And this podcast is primarily meant for people that are making it up, if you will, or maybe better yet, have made it up. You've actually started your own thing, a consulting, a coaching business, agency, that type of thing, where you've been chasing this freedom and you've wanted to have this power, this sense of calendar freedom and time freedom to control my own schedule, be my own boss. And for some reason, it feels like even if you've gotten traction in the business or gotten traction in this, maybe you worked for somebody else, but you've positioned yourself to where you could have more authority over your calendar. You've worked yourself into a place where you have some success, but you still feel like, oh, things are way too full. My calendar gets all over the place. It's out of control. I don't have the freedom or the ease that I really want. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're listening because this episode is all about calendar freedom, how to free up your calendar without changing a thing about your business. This is the second episode of this podcast experiment. I'm calling the Good Life Consultant. Thanks for listening. My name is Blake, and I worked for years dialing in my productivity to the point where I was training and teaching and broadcasting to literally thousands of business owners about how to save time, get more done in less time, free up their calendar, free up their time, make more money in less time, all of that good stuff. But I eventually burned out even while I was teaching that material and have since, in my second and third attempts of starting my own business, now that I've got a couple of kids, I've been able to not get this stuff perfect, of course, but I've been able to find some freedom that I never found in the time management books. I didn't find this in anything that was related to business growth or calendar hacks or things of that nature. I won't name the books specifically because time management books and tools and all that stuff, I'm all for them. I think they're great. But what I have found really brings me freedom, I did not find in those books. And that is the main reason I'm choosing to make this episode today because I hear it all the time from my clients. Let me know if this sounds at all like you, where your uh, calendar is maybe time blocked. You're trying a time blocking method and you're so excited because you're going to get your deep work done. But then one of your kids is sick, or a client knocks on the door or calls you or messages you. Or maybe you have back to back to back calls. You don't have that deep work and you're stacking calls because that's how you can move the needle and you're just drained. And what used to bring you joy in the business now feels like a big pain. Or maybe you've got a team and they keep pinging you with problems and you don't know when those problems or fires are going to come up. You just know you've got to respond to them, or you can try to not respond, but then you risk letting things slip. Or maybe you find yourself in if this has ever been you, you actually are off technically. You've got the time freedom, right? but maybe your spouse is over there folding laundry and you're just sending messages on Slack or Voxer, trying to catch up, trying to take care of clients or take care of your team instead of really enjoying the free time that you have. Or maybe, and this will be my last visual example, you do have that free time and nobody's interrupting you, but your mind is so fried, you aren't sure how to spend the time. What do I even do? Am I doing the right thing? I'm probably going to waste this time. Oh shoot, let me check my email. Let me check Instagram. Let me do this. Oh yeah, that should do that. So if that's you, if any of that rang true, I encourage you to continue listening, to continue watching, and hopefully my live stream doesn't crash. And if not, my backup recording works. All right. So this is not about time hacks. In fact, I'm not going to even tell you you need to change a bunch of stuff in your business, even though there's probably things you know you should change in your business. I want to tell you something different. And I got a good response last week when I was sharing some personal stories. So I'm going to share another personal story to hopefully illustrate what I'm talking about. This was about 4 years ago now. I was in a role for a productivity company called Full Focus, where I did a lot of different things. I wore a lot of different hats. I didn't have my own business at that time. In fact, I had tried and failed a few different times at my own business before being in this role. But like someone with their own business, I had a lot of control over how my time was spent, and I had a lot of hats that I needed to wear. So I was selling our high ticket coaching program. That's where most of my commission and paycheck was generated from. I was developing a sales process and also selling a upsell to that program. And I was doing some media and some podcasting type of work for the company, as well as developing and executing training for corporations, teams, things like that. So there was a lot of things that I was managing. And this year in particular, I had big goals. I really wanted to make more money. Raise your hand if you ever want to make more money. I wanted to make more. And I had ambitions. I would get so motivated at the turn of the year, like, I'm going to double my income. I'm going to triple. I'm going to quadruple, whatever. Right. I want actually the actual number I wrote down was I wanted to go. I think I was on average doing like eight to 9K per month. And I wanted to essentially triple that. But a wrinkle was our company decided to start an experiment where we were going to control and reduce work hours as a company from an 8 hour time frame, 8 hour day time frame to 6 hour day time frame. And the whole purpose was let's be our own case study for work less, achieve more, which is the ethos of the brand, right? Well, the difficult thing when you get paid for sales and there's only so many calls and there's only so many hours to take those calls, it was like, okay, great. How do I balance my time and still actually hit these goals? So I did what you've probably done whenever your time is constrained and you try to be more productive. You try to do some scheduling. You try to think, okay, how can I maximize? I want to max it out. And that worked. It helped. But then some things stopped working. Obviously, there was a little ceiling there, but I remember one instance in particular, and this is what I want to tell you about this little story because it's going to illustrate if there is a hack, I guess, a deeper secret to time management that actually brings you freedom. It's what I'm going to share with you that I relearned in this particular instance. We were mid year and I was feeling good because my sales were climbing, my commissions were climbing. But one month in particular, things took a big dip. Less leads were coming in. Marketing wasn't working as well. I wasn't closing super well on calls. And I saw my numbers not only not grow, not stay the same, actually dip significantly. And I was mad. I was a nasty cocktail of frustrated, angry, doubting myself, afraid. And this is where I stepped into something that changed how I thought about time and calendar management forever. Dramatic enough? That's worth a sip of coffee. What's up, Kathy, Jeremy, and Peter? Peter, great to see you, my friend. See your little avatar there. And Jeremy, this copy's from you. Jeremy was kind enough to send me a little gift card. This one's this one's from you direct. Thank you, sir. Hopefully you're enjoying some coffee yourself. Okay, so let's get back to it. So I had this moment and I went through a process. Decided to experiment with something because I honestly was pretty frustrated trying to continue to just figure out a way to sort of mentally figure out how to work my schedule or work the system or work my strategy to try to fix this to get more done in less time to come out from it. And I decided to take a different approach. And this is related to some of what I shared last week, where I decided to go after how I was seeing things rather than what I was seeing. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I did. I went to a gym, not to work out, but because that's where there was some childcare and I needed some to try to get some headspace. So that's me. That's my workout advice. Find a gym that has childcare. Don't work out, but dig into the depths of your perspective. So that's what I did. I pulled up my laptop and I followed a few different prompts here. The first prompt was, what am I feeling right now? Well, sir, I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling this. I'm feeling this. I won't say all the words that I wrote down in that journal entry because I don't know what's safe to share on YouTube or not. But they were not pleasant. And I'm, by the way, I am reducing this down to a format that's actually shareable here. So this is a reduced down version that I think you'll benefit from. So the first thing is I just identify, what am I actually feeling here? I'm feeling really frustrated. And then I simply finish this sentence. I feel frustrated because, well, I feel frustrated because I'm not making enough sales. And then I followed another prompt. This is third. That's not okay. Why is it not okay to make enough sales? And this is where things got interesting because I went with my gut. The very first thing that came to my mind, we weren't going to be out on the street or something like that. The first thing that came to my mind was, because that means I'm a failure. I had set this goal of what I wanted my life to be, of what I wanted my story to be this year, what I wanted my bank account to be this year. That story's ruined. What does that mean? It means I'm a failure. That's not okay because that means I'm a failure. And then the final prompt was, could I, if I had to, disprove that I'm a failure? That this means I'm a failure? Could I actually make a case that that is illogical? And it was hard at first because I felt like a failure. But I remembered as I was just riffing and journaling, my friend Austin, shout out Austin if you're listening to this, had just made a post on Instagram. And Austin, for context, is at that time was where I thought I might want to be. Really successful, had his own business, made lots of money, written some books, successful guy. He had shared a post about how they had a really down sales month about 6 months prior and how he was feeling these things and how it caused him to examine his business and how they restructured X, Y, and Z thing. And then they've been steadily climbing. And now he has more time and the business is running more reliably and they're making more than ever. And so I thought, wait a second. When Austin had a down sales month, did that make him a failure? No. Okay, so why does it mean that I'm a failure? Well, that doesn't make sense. And there's more there. I journaled through that. I added some more. I built that case more and more to where I genuinely was like, wait a second. This doesn't make sense. My perspective does not make sense. My perspective not only isn't helping me because I don't know about you, but when I feel super frustrated, I'm not my most productive. I'm actually not that fun to be around. I'm actually not that fun to buy from. If you were on a sales call with me and I was fuming, right? Or I was feeling really scarce. Yeah. You're probably not your best either when you feel like you've got no time or you're low on your resources. So I realized, wait a second, my perspective genuinely does not make sense. And I thought, actually, the interesting thing about this is not only does it not make sense, but I could actually see how this could be serving me because wasn't it serving my friend Austin? And if it's serving me, then maybe my perspective could be shifting. And this is where I want to just pause for a moment because I don't want you to go, oh yeah, Blake's talking about limiting beliefs and just see it differently and find the silver lining. That's not what I'm talking about. And it's not what I'm talking about because there's a temptation to simply say, oh, I've got these setbacks or these hard times. Let me just turn my frown around. Let me see the positives. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you actually need to search out what is the perspective that is driving how you see. What's the perspective that's driving how you see? Okay, because how you see your calendar is more important than what you see on your calendar. Creating freedom in your calendar and in your schedule is less about what's in your schedule, what's on the calendar, what are the functions or responsibilities in your business, and it's more about how you see those things. So you need to be able to get to what's the actual perspective. And rather than duct tape something that sounds better or that Tony Robbins might approve of, you actually need to prove it to yourself. You need to prove it or shift that perspective yourself. When you do that, everything else begins to change. And it's not necessarily magic, although sometimes it feels that way. For me, in this particular instance, of course, my stress and my frustration went down considerably. There was less self-hatred, really. That's really what was driving the frustration was a sense of self-hatred. That's I'm getting a little deep here, but that's real. But when that shifted, interestingly, my next several months ascended and ascended and ascended. I was talking with my wife this morning because I was trying to brainstorm what story should I share about this principle. And she said, that season was so funny because after that time, you would text me when you were at the office and you would say, I'm going to lie down now, or I'm going to go for a walk and appreciate the leaves like some hippy dippy dude. But the interesting thing was I actually just took time to enjoy my time, and I shifted from 6 hours isn't enough to get this all done to actually the more freedom that I choose right now, the easier these sales and these ideas and these strategies come, and the easier they are to execute. I know that sounds silly because it feels silly even telling you that that's actually what happened, but this is the thing. This is how it works. It's tempting, friends, to want to just see, well, if I could just find the tool to this, or my AI could do this, if I could do this, and Cal Newport said that if I block my time and do this, then I'll achieve X, Y, and Z. It's like all those things are fine, but go further upstream. It's easier. It's simpler. It's more challenging initially to go up there because it's scary to sort of see what you might find or what you might have to give up. But friends, it is so much simpler to correct the downstream effects of your calendar if you've actually looked at the upstream perspectives that are driving how you see those things. The radical thing about all this is that I ended up 3xing my average monthly. I didn't 3x my income because it was a climb, but like the last 3 months of that year were 3x what I was making. And I was blown away because I would actually working less, but so many different ideas. And I think honestly, just the energy that I was bringing to the calls just had shifted because showing up to things feeling like I'm not enough, I don't have enough, I'm lacking all of these things. It changes. And for you, maybe you're not doing sales specifically, right? Right now, I'm doing a bunch of different stuff. You're probably doing a bunch of different stuff. But imagine how your upstream perspectives on your calendar are affecting your connection with your spouse, with your kids, with your team, with your clients. I'll give you an example of a client I have named Megan, and she is awesome. And I'm realizing I have two clients named Megan that both do similar things. So I won't share too much details, obviously. But the point I think what you can relate to in this story is she was so frustrated by getting interrupted. In the beginning of the week, I plan things out, I get my strategy set, but then I just get these interruptions. And it's just so frustrating because it just derails my day. And then I'm so busy, then I'm staying up later, I'm working later, I'm missing time with my kids, or if I'm with my kids, then I'm actually have lower energy. And I dug into it a little bit. I said, well, what's one thing that's really creating these interruptions? Or give me an example. She's like, well, I've got these clients that will just show up to the office or they'll call me. And I go, okay, why do they do that? Well, because I say you can just call me if you need help with a problem or something. and I probably started laughing like this, and I said, have you considered using this? There's this app called Calendly. You could just send a link, and and she said, no, no, I don't feel good about that. And we dug into why. And this is what's interesting, right? Because the answer isn't just, hey, just send out scheduling links and then you won't get any more interruptions. We dug a little deeper to go, what's the perspective that has you making all of these downstream decisions that now make you feel resentful of your clients and frustrated and not having enough time for you? And we dug into it and we realized, wait a second, you, what if we weren't afraid of being perceived as uncaring? In fact, does it make any sense that you even would be perceived as that? Or is that what that means? And we just unraveled this thing to where she's at the end, she's like, oh, yeah, well, yeah, maybe I'll try the Calendly thing. And she emailed me, I remember it was like a week later, and she said, um, "This is amazing. I was afraid that all my clients would be mad. There was only one that was mad, and to be honest, I've been meaning to fire that client." Right? So imagine, I'm not asking you to spend forever going deep into your perspectives and whatever, but I'm just think of the things this week that where you have felt a tightening, a sense of I don't have enough time for this or this reason or this reason or this reason. And rather than trying to fix that downstream or duct tape that thing with a time hack or time management or trying to be more productive, consider just taking that one thing and going further upstream. Okay, so on that note, I'm actually going to give you a maybe a more practical takeaway. I'll put this into a form that you can actually use here. I wrote it down in a note. I didn't take much notes. I like to just riff and speak from the heart on these, but I made a little note card for this part. It says practical takeaway. Doesn't everyone want a practical takeaway? Oh, hey, you can actually read that. Hey. So here it is for the YouTube viewers, for the viewers at home, but I'll say this out loud for the listening audience. I want you to, if you want to create some freedom, I actually want you to start with a constraint. Start with a constraint that you would like. And I realize that that word might not make sense. Let me rephrase that. Right now, I have a few constraints in my life and in my business that help protect my time. One of those constraints is I don't do client calls before a certain time of day. Another constraint is outside of extenuating circumstances, I don't work past 3 p.m. And I've put those constraints in before I even started this business. It had nothing to do with how successful I was, it had to do with what my value system was. So I want you to consider, well, what is one constraint that I wish I could have? Maybe it's I want to take Fridays off. Maybe it's I don't want to ever miss school pickup. I want to be there every time. So that means I need to be done working at 2 or 3 or whatever. What is a constraint that you wish you could have? That's number one. Start with that constraint that would create this freedom for you. Just one. Then ask yourself, what would have to be true for that constraint to be honored? What would have to be true for that to actually happen? Okay, now don't get ahead of me here. I'm not asking you to wave a magic wand and do those things because maybe that feels really daunting. I'm asking you, third, to finish once you've written down what would be required. for that constraint to actually work, to be upheld, I want you to finish this sentence. That's not safe because what? It's not safe to do those things to honor that constraint because if I do, dot, 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 my team is going to get mad at me. Um, my spouse will be jealous of me. My uh, sales will go down. Whatever that thing is, there may be several, but write down, well, that's not safe because, all right. And that right there is a perspective. That right there is a perspective that you can begin to unravel. And when you do, I promise you, there is not a time hack that could ever work better. Part of what I do day to day is I coach people through simplifying their consulting business so they can free up their time, scale their impact, all that good stuff, right? They can really have a lifestyle business that they love to have. But the truth is, when we get down to it, yes, there's some mechanics to simplifying a business offer. Yes, there's some mechanics to automation. But when you go upstream, let me phrase it this way actually, you can do those things. But my guess is if you're watching this, if you follow me, you already probably know what you wish you could do or what you should do. I should really let go of those clients. I should really simplify this part of my business. I should really whatever. I don't probably need to make that higher. If I really gave it some thought, I could probably just have, I could automate this or delete that. But something holds you back. When you have a block of free time, something holds you back from just taking action. You're so, is this the right thing to do? And it's all that tension, right? Going a little bit further upstream is going to it's going to unlock your ability, friends. It's going to unlock your superpower. It's actually going to make everything that you do in your calendar free. This is going to be I'm going to lose everyone here. I'm going to lose all of you here. I told myself, don't go this deep because you're just going to lose people and no one's going to opt in for whatever thing you offer because they're going to think this is too deep and whatever. All right. So now that I've lost everyone, I will say this. This is your deep thought. The beautiful thing about going upstream is that you don't need to change a darn thing about your business or even about your calendar because when your perspective shifts on what you're seeing, you begin to be free wherever you are in whatever you're doing. And the resistance to making the changes that you've been thinking you need to make for forever or having the conversations or whatever, those things begin to be so much easier to execute. That freedom, more time freedom is actually possible. That's actually how you do it. That's actually how you get it. Because if you don't do that, you can have a big empty time block and still feel like you don't have time freedom. That's the bad news. I got this text message from a client yesterday. Let me see if I can pull it up here. She was messaging me because she was having this experience of, I'm not sure what I should be doing. I'm feeling overwhelmed by this and this and this. And I asked, okay, well, what's on fire? What's urgent? What do you got to do? Just start. Just don't let the money burn. Just go do the thing. She goes, well, there's nothing urgent. I have an empty time block. I just not really sure. And I just want to read you exactly our exchange here. I said, don't worry about getting it quote unquote right. Take action with an emphasis on being present, doing what you're doing. Action creates clarity. And then I said, there's likely some mind stuff that we might want to clear out related to this, AKA going upstream and finding some perspectives. To start with not start with not giving a crap about whether you're prioritizing correctly. And then she said, I feel like you've given me permission to pause, to be present and patient with wherever the pause/presence takes me. And I said, yes, Correct. The real obstacle is the perspective that you didn't have permission in the first place. All right. That's what I've got for you today. This is what I want you to know, that it's not so much what you're seeing in your calendar today or this week, it's how you're seeing it. And I know that might be frustrating because it's not a simple time hack, but time freedom, actual ease and freedom, and even enjoyment of the busiest, kid sickiest, client clingiest of calendars can still feel like freedom. And your ability to implement the type of schedule you really love to live becomes infinitely easier when you learn this method. So I'm thinking of making a guide, almost like a starter kit that's really about this, like how to simplify your calendar. Like I made you a little takeaway here. I explained sort of how I did it. If it would be helpful to have more of a direct guide just in that, please let me know. If it would not be helpful and you think that's a terrible idea, let me know that as well. Because I don't want to waste my time. I want calendar freedom too, y'all. But if it would be helpful, let me know specifically, and even include some specifics about what you would want to make sure I share in that. Because I recognize that talking about these in a podcast form might be inspiring, but you might need a little extra nudge to just make the execution of this concept a reality. Okay. Thanks for tuning in, my friends. Next time on the Good Life Consultant Podcast, Blake's going to drink more coffee. All right, y'all. Thanks for being with me. Thanks for listening. Give me a shout. You can leave a comment on the YouTube video or send me a DM on Instagram. At Blake Strat is the old handle there. And let me know what your thoughts are here. If this resonated, if it didn't, I'd love to hear from you specifically about what work you felt like it was missing from this and what you may want to see in a guide about doing this. I'll talk to you next time.